we don't get the kind of beasties down here that I see talked about a lot on this subreddit. A lot of what I've read centers around Native American teachings, which is both fascinating and among the most nightmare-inducing tales I've ever come across. Down here in Australia though, our tales are of another world entirely. I've seen some stuff. A lot of it we don't even know what to call. Our First Nation stories, or more accurately, Aboriginal dreamings, are not as well documented as your Native American stories are, sadly. A lot of it got all but wiped out during the colonial years, and far beyond, come to think of it. But there are bits and pieces. There are voices that keep the old stories alive, and a few of them seem to tie in pretty neatly with what we saw that night. Now, I mentioned above an important distinction. Do you know why the Aboriginal people refer to their stories as the dreaming? It is because, for all intents and purposes, it is not fiction. The dreaming, or more commonly, the dream time, is a very real time before time in Aboriginal culture. It is a place and a time that actually happened. This is troubling for those of us who live in the more rural and secluded parts of this country, places where the bright lights of civilization fail to dull the echoes of these ancient times. So with that in mind, to my story. Me and my best mate Gavin, we grew up together in Home Hill. It's one of the two townships either side of the mighty Burdekin River. There's Ayr, the bigger of the two towns, on one side, and our sleepy little country town on the other. Connecting the two towns, the massive Burdekin Bridge stretching over the river. Now, this is at the mouth of the Burdekin, so as you can imagine, saltwater crocodiles are prominent here. These guys are some of the most dangerous animals down here in the Down Under. They are among the oldest species still alive on planet Earth, and for over 240 millenniums, they have perfected the art of the hunt. You're always told here not to get too close to the water's edge. This is because crocodiles will quite literally sit under the murky water, invisible to the human eye, for hours on end, just waiting for some poor soul to wander too close. The last thing that person will ever hear is an earth-shattering crack as this actual dinosaur smashes through the surface of the water, grasping them tight within its jaws and dragging them down to the murky depths. It's honestly the stuff of nightmares. This is something Gavin and I were very conscious of when we were headed out for our very first camping trip alone. Like a lot of Aussie kids growing up, we used to camp out a lot in our backyards, not being old enough yet to camp out for real. But this all changed the year we hit 15 years old, and we were given the freedom to wander down to the river, have little overnight campouts. Now these excursions, of course, came with strict rules. No swimming, obviously, and no going anywhere near the water's edge, as well as all the other croc-safe stuff we're taught growing up here, such as not leaving food or scraps out around the campsite. This is basically like waving a red flag at a bull, and it's a sure way to wake up in the middle of the night to a 6-meter-long monster chowing down on your leftovers, and possibly you. So there we were, heading out for our first campout. Oh boy, did we feel like big men. All alone, nothing but our sleeping bags, a tent, and a few overnight supplies. ready to tackle the big wide world. We followed all the rules though. We weren't silly. We set up camp around midday in a picture-perfect little spot. The sandy riverbank blending with the typical Aussie bushland to create this beautiful oasis among an otherwise barren landscape. We propped up our little tent under the shade of a couple of gum trees, and we spent the next few hours toasting marshmallows, drinking way too much soft drink, and chatting back and forth about typical high school stuff. As night set in, along with all the winter chill of an Australian July, we retreated into our tent. We, of course, sat up well into the night, telling each other scary stories, as young fellas tend to do. I was midway through yarning on about some ghost story or another, when, in the dead of the night, we pause. It's only very faint, but we can hear something. A distant sound, but easily identifiable. A slow, ominous, dragging noise. This caused us to bolt upright. There's only one thing around here making a sound like that. There's a crocodile dragging itself up the riverbank towards us. We shut off our torches and we huddled towards the back of the tent, our eyes locked on the front of the tent, looking for any signs of this thing, hoping beyond hope this dragging sound would cease or grow ever more distant as the thing disappeared off into the night. Gavin started feeling around for his pocket knife. We were planning to cut a hole in the back of the tent and make a run for it. We couldn't go out the front, as it could be right there waiting for us. We would be running right into its jaws. Even if it was still a good distance away, people are often amazed how quickly these things can move on land. There was every chance that we would still be dead. The dragging sound continued. Gush, flop, gush, flop. Yeah, no mistaking that. That's a crocodile, all right. With trembling hands, we continued fumbling around, looking for the pocket knife to make our escape. But we couldn't find it. That dragging sound was so close now, and we could hear the thing sniffing around. We could hear these disgusting, guttural noises coming out of it as it poked around our campsite. This was serious now. We were very much in a life or death scenario. We had two options now. We could sit still and hope that this thing doesn't smell us, or we could try our luck running out the front tent flap. We tried desperately ripping a hole in the tent with our bare hands, but we just couldn't do it. And the way this tent was built, we couldn't just lift it up and run out the back. We were trapped. Even if we wanted to consider running, honestly, we were frozen in place. I don't think that was ever going to be an option. I don't know how long we sat frozen like that. I mean, it must have been a matter of less than a minute. But my God, let me tell you, it felt much longer. But eventually, we heard a different kind of dragging sound. One that went on much longer and was heading away from our campsite. The croc was dragging itself away? No, the croc was being dragged away. We could hear its jaws snapping. We could hear the sound of heavy footfalls. And then, we heard the most disgusting sounds of flesh tearing, ligaments ripping, innards spilling. Oh, it was horrible. Whatever was happening out there, we got the impression that we were now faced with something much worse than a croc. There was something out there, big enough to drag a crocodile forcefully away, and by the sounds of things, kill it. We continued sitting there, just huddled at the back of the tent, listening to the sounds of an animal that we had grown up being told to fear, being brutally ripped to pieces. This went on for far too long. Whatever was doing this had made a conscious choice to prolong this thing's suffering. And then there was silence. The animal stopped resisting, and we heard only the sound of a lifeless body falling helplessly to the ground. Then, silence yet again. Nothing but the ambient sounds of the night. Until those sounds of heavy footsteps once again reverberated through the still night air. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. We could have just sat there. We could hear the footsteps moving away. We should have stayed put. I don't know. Maybe we thought that because whatever this was had killed the crocodile, that it was somehow friendly. I don't know. We were stupid kids. We were panicked. We were in a state of complete and total shock. But for whatever stupid, pig-headed reason, we slowly unzipped the tent and stuck our dumb little heads out into the darkness. It was illuminated under the moonlight, and it was massive. I mean, massive. At least 8 feet tall, probably bigger. Its limbs were not human. Nah, far from it. They were all cracked and broken, and honestly, looked like the whole thing's body was made of stone. It was lumbering away into the river. It was just wading through the water like it wasn't bothered. It dragged something in its hand, something long and sharp. I guess that's what had mutilated our crocodile. Yeah, that's what else we saw. There certainly had been a crocodile, but not anymore. This was no small specimen either. This croc must have been at least a 5 meters salty. Its lifeless body lay by the river's edge, a massive cut down its belly. There is no animal out here capable of doing that. Or so we thought. We watched in awe as this thing continued to wander off into the night. As it walked, it released these inhuman sounds, grunting and grumbling as it disappeared into the bushland on the far side of the river. Those sounds still haunt me today. I have no doubt this thing was not a friend. It was out for blood. The attack was just too vicious, too deliberate. It was not there to lend us a hand. That crocodile just happened to be the easiest thing in its path. Maybe it noticed us. Maybe it knew we were in that tent, and we were just too much of a hassle to get to. Maybe it didn't know. I don't know. But those questions do trouble me, thinking back. The incident did lead me to look deeper into Aussie monster stories, to the point that I now have a pretty high level of confidence that what we saw that night was the Malingi. The First Nations people will tell you stories about him, They, too, know that he is not a friend, and like all of their tales, it is deeply steeped in reality. Well, I know for sure now that this one certainly is. I don't go to that spot anymore. Far as I'm concerned, that's his territory, and he can keep it. I warned others about what we saw that night, and I still do to this day. Tried to tell our parents all about it the night it happened, but, of course, they brushed it off as scared kids and their imaginations. I've not heard of any more attacks or even run-ins, and I'm glad for that. I'd rather not be proven right on this one.